So one of the things I talk about a lot too, and this will tie us into our next question, is are you responding to the fruit of what the buyer's telling you or the root of the issue of why they're there? So many people, and I'll get into that more, but so many people in sales will hear somebody walk in their door and they'll say something like, hey, what brings you out looking at a new home today? And the person might say something back to them like, well, we're just, we're in the market. We're taking a look around. We want to look at your models. Right. Or they might say something like, well, we just need some more space.
Right.
To me, when I first started selling, all I thought was, okay, they need more space. I got to get them more space, John. I got to go get a 2,500, 4,000 square foot home.
Right.
But then I recognized that was simply the fruit. That was what they were saying. But at the root of the issue was what we were diving into earlier. And that's going to lead us to our next question, is the root of the issue is that second layer of questioning, right? So salespeople tend, not the ones that aren't super great, tend to stay at that first level. What brings you out looking for a new car today? My daughter needs a new car for her 16th birthday.
Right.
The root of it for the dad might be safety.
Right.
His little girl's getting into a car for the first time.
Right.
She's 16 years old. He's terrified. Yeah. Right. Do they need a new car for the daughter? Yeah, that's the fruit. But the root of it is safety for the dad. That's why he's there.
Right.
And then for the same thing with a home, right? We need more space.
Right.
For the mom, that might be, hey, I got 5 kids running around and I need an office so that I can do my team's meeting and run my team in peace. And the dad might say, hey, I need a kitchen that I can cook for these kids and watch them do homework.
So you're finding the root of the problem.
That's right.
To make that sale.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to cut you off.
Please go.
Because in my opinion, now there's all kinds of methods and techniques that cops do and interrogators do and things of that nature. But for me, what I find to be most successful is exactly what you're saying. It's mind-boggling. Finding the root cause. Not everybody that commits a crime is a bad human being. Let's face it. And we all make mistakes, right? And so, your serial killers, those are bad human beings, right? They're out there just murdering people left and right? But some people make mistakes. And so if you can have that conversation with somebody, build that rapport, get that, that connection going and learn, and I'll tell you how we learn about people, but learn what their root is. Why did you do what you did? And I brought it up earlier, why did you do this? Did you do this because this is what you do on a regular basis?
Right.
Or maybe you were having financial issues and you felt like you had no choice.
Come on, that's
right.
it. Yeah.
Right. Maybe you're a good husband. You're out there working 50, 60 hours a week and you came home and found out that your wife was doing something, or vice versa. Your husband was doing something while you're taking care of the house, this, that, and the other. And maybe that's why you and him got into it and you hit him in the head with an iron. Who knows? Right. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People make mistakes. And sometimes when you can find, for me, the root of the problem rather than the fruit, rather than going after that confession. And I often teach, forget about the confession, find out the reason why.
That's right.
Because if you can find out the reason why, and it's equivalent to your root, if you can find out the reason why, it's easier for that person to open up to you and tell you why they did what they did.
Exactly.
Because everybody's got a reason why. Now, again, some people are evil.
Right.
And the reason why they did it is because they're just bad human beings.
Right.
But you do have people that made mistakes and they're good human beings. They just messed up, And so this is it. It's the why.
Exactly
it's the root. It's amazing.
Yeah, this is where our roads really find a parallel. And I think as salespeople, to go even full circle with this, the very last point that we were talking about was taking your time and welcome and report, right?
Yeah,
it's understanding who is sitting in front of you. Why is this person here? So one of the best things I teach all my salespeople to do, and in some of the consulting I've done as well, is get the buyer to sit down. Right? So one of the things that we'll go back to the car dealership, right? So I was buying my truck not that long ago, and the sales guy, he was so good because you know what he did? He said, "Hey, let's get in off the lot." I found the truck. I was looking at the vehicle, right?
Right.
How many
what
sales
you want.
guys are going to be like, what brings you looking at this truck? He was like, "Hey guys, let's get you inside. Let me get you some water bottles. Let's get you sat down, and really just kind of tell me what you're looking to do and how I can best help you."
Right.
That blew me away. Right. And I speak about creating a differentiation between you and the other sales offices or you and that other insurance office.
Right.
So in what ways are you as salespeople creating that differentiating factor to where the person looks at you and goes, you know what? I do want to sit down. I do want to have a water bottle, with you and just tell me your story. So that's going to tie us right back into the next question I want to ask you is, you got a person in front of you, suspect, victim, witness. You're going to ask them a line of questions. how do you know when to get to that second layer? And with you, what are some of those second layer questions that get to really the heart of the matter? Right.
So the second layer questioning would be wrapped around the root of the problem.
There you go. Yeah.
And how do I find out the root? I have a conversation with them prior. We do an interview prior. So a lot of people don't understand the difference. And I know cops that don't understand the difference, but there is a difference between an interview and an interrogation. An interview is you can conduct with a victim, witness, or suspect, and it's just a fact-finding mission. It's where you're having a conversation with somebody. You're learning about the case, right? You're not accusing anybody of a crime. You're talking about maybe the case, but you're talking about, whatever you're talking about. But an interview is just a fact-finding mission. Where the interrogation is where, and I teach the guilty criminal suspect, not just a suspect, because I don't believe in interrogating people unless you have evidence to know that they're your guy, because you don't want to interrogate the wrong person. And I truly believe that. But the interrogation is where you go after the guilty criminal suspect and you try to get him to tell you the truth.
Right.
That's the difference between an interview and interrogation. And so once I find out the root, that helps me during my interrogation, talk to me about why you did this, the why. And how do I find that out? During the interview, when I'm just talking to them, I'm having a conversation with them. When you have a conversation with somebody and you're shooting the shit with them, again, I said I cuss a little bit.
That's all right.
And you're having a conversation about anything other than the crime, you're learning more about them.
That's right.
And you never know what they're going to tell you that you can use during the more accusatory tone when it's time for the truth, when it's time to get the truth out of somebody. Same thing for you. If you learn more about your prospect
right.
and more about, what they're into, maybe that'll help you sell that home a little bit quicker.
100%.
Right?
100%.
It's not just a home. You told me a story that was amazing. I'm going to share it if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I teach this in my class when I teach Be Visual, and, but it's the same lesson. You told me about, I might get some of my facts wrong here, but I'm going to do my best. You told me about a sale that you had where a guy was very reluctant. He wanted to buy the home, but he was reluctant on buying it because, whatever the deal may be. People are, it's sometimes sales are hard, because, somebody wants to make the purchases, but they're really nervous. That moment of closing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you talked about how you brought this person, you put him on the golf cart.
Yeah.
Brought him out to the back of the house.
Oh, yeah.
You sat him on the back, and you guys were sitting over the porch, and I think it was a golf course.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Well, it was a lake overlooking a preserve. So, yeah, close
beautiful,
enough.
Right?
Yeah, right?
But it's beautiful.
It was nice, yeah.
And you sat there, and you visualized, right?
That's right.
And you sat there, and you asked him about how, hey, listen, I know you work hard for a living. Imagine sitting back here every day. This is your getaway.
That's exactly it.
And he needs a getaway. Everybody needs a getaway, right? You're a hard worker. You're putting in 50, 60 hours a week. You need a getaway.
Yeah.
You found his need.
Yep.
And you visualized it to him, and you showed it to him. And how did you find that out? Because you knew about him. He didn't just walk in, and I'm assuming, he didn't just walk in there and said, let's go look at a house. You learned about him.
That's absolutely
And
right.
when you learned about this guy, you were able to find what he needs, what he really wants, right? And you found what he wants. You found what he needs. He needs that solace. He needs a nice place to unwind after work, have a beer, and look over the lake and the preserve and the whole 9 yards. And you sold it to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that's interesting about that story was this is a prime example of when sometimes you'll have a buyer, right? A husband and a wife or partners come in, and one of the partners looks at the buyer and is like, hey, I'm ready to go. Yeah. Right. Let's write this up. That buyer actually, the crazy thing was his wife was ready to sign the deal at that moment. And I could see it was right on the tip of her lips.
But he's probably like me. I'm afraid to buy anything.
Right. Exactly. He's sweating.
Yeah,
he's nervous.
that's me.
And a lot of times you'll see salespeople push. Right. And before we actually walked out here, we were talking about setting up, stop looking at your sales process as running down a narrow path or a narrow hallway, but actually look at it like a chessboard. Yeah. Right. Look at it from 30,000 feet. So in that moment, I'm sitting there at the closing table. I know I've got the wife ready to go. Right. 90% of the time, that's your decision maker anyways. Yep. And all the husband needed was to feel the warm and fuzzies. He needed to be sold a little bit, right? And that's where that salesmanship comes in. And what I did in that moment was, and John hit it pretty much right on the head, but for the salespeople out there, you guys are really going to appreciate this. I basically just said, hey, let's take a break. Yeah. All right? Like, I remember that. Yep. Let's take a break from this. I feel the pressure. My God. Yeah. Right? And I said, let's go get on the golf cart. Let's go look at your lot. And let's just go be at your home. Right? And so we get on the golf cart. I could immediately see him have relief on his face just when I said, let's take a break. Right. And so for the salespeople out there, don't be afraid to say, hey, let's take a moment.
I like it.
Let's get on the golf cart. or let's go on a walk. Let's go look at the house. And then when I got him out there, I actually had the wife, believe it or not, stay at the golf cart.
Wow.
And I said, hey, can I just have, and I won't say his name on here just in case, but can I just have a minute with your husband? Right. And so we started walking through this home and I said, hey, listen, I just want you to know that you don't have to buy this home today.
Right.
Like I want you to, right? And I think your wife wants you to.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, but I do want to show you one more thing. And so I take him out there and he was a nurse. And this was right before COVID was really hitting. And I know he was exhausted. I mean, my God, he showed up to the contract table basically in scrubs. Yeah. Right? Like this is a guy who's tired.
Of course.
And so I get him out there and I just said, like you said, I said, hey, can you imagine drinking a beer out here? Yeah. You got your son in the backyard. You're looking at this beautiful lake.
Visual. It's visual.
Right. And then I did this thing that I didn't know if it was going to work, and it did. And I'm not suggesting this for everybody. You kind of know your audience, right? But I said, just take a deep breath for a minute.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember him actually inhaling and breathing deep and releasing a breath of stress and anxiety. Right. He went back to the office, signed that minute, handed me an earnest money check.
It's amazing.
And thanked me. And that guy came back with perfect survey scores and all those things. He's as happy as can be. And it's one of those stories that I love to tell because at the end of the day, guys, you're painting a picture.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that is awesome.
Yep. And I'm gonna talk about something else. I didn't think we were gonna dive into this, but when you talk about painting a picture, one of the things that I teach in my course is tactically introducing evidence.
Right.
Now, back in my old days, I would throw evidence against the wall and go, I got your fingerprints. I got this. But I made no impact. And sometimes I look like an idiot. Right. But I made no impact, right? There was no impact.
Yes.
So now, and I learned a lot talking to you, right? And you'll be surprised. I have conversations with Sass here. I've watched numerous sales seminars because it's persuasion and influence. It's all the same thing. Our worlds are so identical.
Incredibly, yeah.
So when I introduce evidence, instead of throwing it against the wall, if I have a guilty criminal suspect, instead of throwing evidence against the wall and going, I got your finger, I got your phone records, they put you on scene, I sit down with them now, and I'm visual.
That's so good.
Whether I'm drawing a picture because maybe I don't have the phone records in front of me, or I'm showing them pictures of the cell towers and where he was at, I'm going to actually show it to them.
Yep.
And I'll sit on that evidence instead of just yelling that we have it. Let me explain to you how phone records work. Do you know how phone records work? Oh yeah, maybe. Let me show you something. And then I'll spread all the records out and I'll illustrate everything to them and I'll make it visual. Why? Because we need to make an impact. It can't just be, we have your fingerprints, we got your phone records, put you on scene. I want them to completely understand why this is foolproof, why this evidence is amazing, and you're there and you were caught and you really should talk to me about it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. What you're doing, what I'm doing, right? Circumstances are different, but the way we go about it is identical.
That's right.
I'm very visual now, where maybe years ago I wasn't. Now when I sit down with somebody, I am visual. I will sit on one piece of evidence for 20 or 30 minutes just explaining how it works if I have to, just to make that visual impact. So just like you did on the back porch. Yeah,
and I think I need to say it, right? So you got to remember too, some prospects don't want you to paint a picture. Right? Like there's those engineer buyers, right? They want facts, they want figures, they want it clean. So a lot of times you're not going to run into that situation. If your deal makes sense to them, they're going to buy. Right. And so I'm not saying that this is a go-to method for everybody. You got to be smart, you got to know who's in front of you. But I will say, when in doubt, paint the photo, because for I would say almost 90% of personalities and people out there, they want that photo.
They're visual.
They're visual.
People are visual learners. They're visual. When they see it, it makes more sense.